Welcome to week 2, everybody. And we've been doing discussions before I pushed record. Ricky is a type 6. Lee is a type 1. Clay is a type 3. Megan thinks she might be a 5 or a 4.
Oh.
Have you settled on a 5?
Okay.
Spoken like a true
definitely in the ballpark.
The 5s are a pretty good offer, so
Yeah.
They're a pretty good lot to be. Of course, I'd say that about all of them, because all of us know somebody who is one of those, but I do love the 5s. And maybe that's because as a type 7, when I am in my strength, that's where I get to go sit in that space for a while and settle into a niche instead of being all over the planet. So I love the group that we have tonight. And I am going to go ahead and get started because there's a good chance Lee might have to jump off in less than an hour.
Okay.
Oh, and if you need to go at any point, just let me know. So, like I said, it's been an interesting week here. We've had the snow, and that was a wonderful thing that we talked about. We are going to talk a little bit more about the Enneagram this week.
Okay.
I know as we go along, we're going to kind of wean away from more of the Enneagram and get into the transformation part. But we've been talking about our stories. And Ricky, did I didn't send you the worksheet, did I? Okay, well, we've been talking about what it is that forms our stories. And I sent it's not a worksheet, a journal prompt, something for you to reflect on. It's no homework. I'm not going to judge it, but I would like to discuss it some tonight. And I thought I heard something. And you'll get the concept and you can contribute, I'm sure. But what we learn along the way is we begin being influenced from all over the place from the moment we're born that build the story of who we are. This is necessary. And when we are going through this course, we're talking about, I'm using the concept of the butterfly, which is the last part of this, but we're kind of in the caterpillar stage right now, and talked about this stage is truly just about consumption. All the caterpillar does is eat. That's all it does. And it eats from the environment that it was born in. So that's like us. We take in information. We consume and consume from all over the place. From the time we're born and somebody announces it's a boy, it's a girl, that begins being an influence on who we feel our identity is. So I spoke to a couple of women this week separately, and both of them were type 2, or they are type 2. They're both going through some real struggles in their life, but both of them used this phrase, which I found so amazing that this came out in the same week. They both said, I wish I could just turn my feelings off. Well, we know that's not possible because a type 2 is in the feeling triad. Asking them to just turn their feelings off is truly impossible. That's how they process life, from their heart first. So just hold on to that information for a little bit. We all come together with different perspectives. That's a given. We get that. We each process life through our unique lens. I like saying it this way. I used to say our own language, but I feel like lens, I can see that better, because if you wear corrective lenses, I mean, I wear reading glasses. That's all these are right now. But my husband has prescription glasses. And so when you need prescription glasses, you have to go to an eye doctor. And so he begins creating your lenses with the specifications that are unique to you, right? And he goes through all of these measurements to determine astigmatism, are you nearsighted or farsighted, and a whole series of measurements that I know nothing about, which is why you go to an eye doctor and not just go to TJ Maxx and pick out the cutest pair that looks cute, but you can't see any better. You need somebody who can really hone in on your specific need. So likewise, when I talk about these perspectives, I like using the metaphor of the lens because I'm never going to see through your unique perspective. And the goal isn't for me to be able to see the world just like you do. That's impossible. It's the hope that we'll begin to understand each other's perspective and that it's necessary to gain insight from each point of view. So like the measurements an optometrist uses to create your lenses, in Enneagram language, the measurements that are used to create the lens that we see through include things like the centers of intelligence. If you know much about the Enneagram, then I'm sure you're familiar with the centers of intelligence, but just a brief overview. They are part of one of many triads in the Enneagram, but we process, like our default process is from our head or our heart or they call it the gut, your body. You feel it in your body first. We all use all three, but one is our primary resource, right? And so Ricky and me, we're in the head triad. And I'm trying to do the math here. So, and so Megan is too. Okay. And Lee is a 1, so you are in the body. And Clay is a 3, so you are in the heart triad. And so that is just one measurement that we take. In the Enneagram, of course, we talk about our types. And we have access to all 9 types, but there's one we feel most at home with. I call it my home base. So again, we have aspects of all of them, but we identify more with the characteristics of one type. I guess I'm trying to be real careful and not say we are that type. Okay, and the third one, or there are many others, but one that I'll mention tonight is another one called the instinctual drives. And a lot of people just call them the instincts. So either way, you'll hear it, instinctual drive. And so what they are is they're really just our animal instincts. It's what we've had since we came into existence as, mankind. And so there are 3 different ones of those 2. And I just want to put this plug in that if you know the Enneagram on like your type and maybe even your center, if you want to go into, I call it a deep dive, and it really is, but knowing the instincts has made all the difference, a huge difference. It's why you can see 2 different types, 2 of the same type, and they react and they process very, very differently. So a very brief description of the instincts would be, 1 is called self-preservation. They focus mainly on their environment. They're concerned with comfort and shelter and food and things that if we were a caveman, that was a very important thing, is how we preserve our environment and stay alive. All of these were to help us stay alive in the beginning. The second instinct would be called the social, and that focuses more on how we relate in groups or in society, or groups in society. Who's my tribe, as we say? What is my place in the tribe, in my family? And how do I navigate my relationships when that is my main focus? As far as my instincts, it's my instinctual drive is, if something's wrong with the tribe, with the family, that's when I react first. And the third one is called the sexual, or the one-to-one. And sometimes people get funny if you say sexual because they think it's all about actual sexual drive. And it very much can be, but it really focuses more on that one-to-one, that energy of a deep connection. So if we've got gathering going on, some of us are going to make sure everyone is doing okay, right? We're concerned with the whole tribe getting together. The self-preservation people are going to want to know, when are we bringing out the buffet? No, I'm kidding. I get to say that because my husband said he's a self-pres 9, and I always pick on him. The sexual instinct, most often you'll find them in deep conversation with one person. And that's a broad overview, but those are what the instincts are. So when we begin to layer our type, our center, our instinct, we see that the story of us just gets broader and broader. I wanted to ask Lee, since she teaches the Enneagram a lot, and she is a sexual type 1, could you just give a little overview of how maybe another 1, especially coming from the body triad, how your instinct shows up differently than another, maybe a social or SP?
Sure. Yeah, I'm happy to. And I will tell you, I totally agree today that the instinct, like lens of perception through the Enneagram, is a really helpful one. Like some of my teachers think, and I think that I agree, that the type is more of a sort of presentation of the instinct than the other way around. Like it's the instinct is happening and our type structure is how we're trying to get that survival drive satisfied.
I agree.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
And it's also so instinctual that it's like coming from a pre-verbal place. It's kind of hard to see in yourself sometimes because it's just the water you swim in. Right.
Right.
I think also. So I don't know if y'all have personal experience with 1s in your life or not, but I'll speak to my perception of some different instinctual presentation, right? I have a very dear friend who's a self-preservation 1, and she and I have a lot of things in common, right? And we can certainly relate to one another about, shared 1 stuff, but we have really different experiences with anger specifically. Like she is keen not to express anger. She doesn't think she's angry. And this is like sort of aside from Enneagram work, like just in life, she's like, anger is bad and I'm not going to feel that way. I'm going to make this be that I can get this worked out in another way. Whereas I think anger is really useful, right? It can be negative, but it can also be necessary and positive, right? And so my willingness to express that anger, like in a conflict situation, she'll be like, go do it, go do the Joan of Arc thing and sort that out. And I'll wait over here until the smoke clears. Whereas this is kind of a behavior example, but she invited me over to lunch one day. Did I tell you guys this story about the sunflower seeds? Okay, I've told it recently and I was having a deja vu moment. So she, in the before times before COVID, she invited me over for lunch and she was going to make salad. And I got there and I'd never eaten at her house before. And she had a kitchen scale out, and was weighing the foods to put into the salad. Right. And so I was like, so what's happening? I mean, and she's like, I am not making this up even the tiniest bit. She had these food tweezers. And when there were too many sunflower seeds, she just took some out.
We were losing you for a second.
Yeah, I was just like, why with it's like 3 sunflower seeds, right? And she was like, well, my doctor said that I need to lose 10 pounds so my blood pressure will be normal. So like, I'm not going to weigh your salad, right? I mean, she's like, you can kill yourself with sunflower seeds. That's fine. But I can't have one extra sunflower seed, right? I'm going to do it right, you know, and my impression of the social one, of the sort of preserving one, is their concern is primarily them, right? Like they're making corrections to themselves at a higher rate. Now, they can also look outside of themselves and see what's wrong, but like in the social one sees more like what's wrong with these groups and organizations and, you know, my church or my political affiliation or bridge club or PTO or whatever. Why aren't they doing it right? Right. And with the sexual or one-to-one one, frequently I can be very critical of myself, but I'm much more likely to see how my husband's doing it wrong. And the way that it processes in my head is how it could be better, right? That could be improved. There's a better way to do that. There's an easier protocol for that. There's a, you know, what you could do is just this whole different way, right? Like, and adding steps to make it perfect. And I do that to myself, but I think that other people experience my help as a lot more critical than I'm experiencing it. I think I'm providing feedback and we're working together to come up with how we're going to do it. And they maybe didn't even want my help in the first place. It was just like, I was just venting. I was not asking for your input, you know, but I'm like, if you ask, we're in it together now. Right. So what are we doing? How are we going to fix it? You know, and if we're trying to fix it, then I'm going to poke holes with what needs to be fixed, you know? So that, I don't know if that's helpful, but that's some.
Oh, it's very helpful. That's why when you talked about anger is bad, you said that's how she perceives it. Well, if we're just going to go on, all type ones react to anger this way because they are in the anger triad, as it is one of those, another triad. And because they want so bad to be right, then they won't act out their anger, supposedly. But that's why the instincts come in. And we get so thrown off when, if we really are aware of others' types and we don't, you know, just go around asking everybody to wear a type name tag. But if they're your close friends and you see 2 9s in the room and they're so different, well, it's that instinct. A self-preservation 9 looks so much different from a social 9. And yet at their core, they have these issues. Like you said, type 1s, they have issues with anger, but they're expressed differently through these instincts. So does everybody know about Beatrice Chestnut's book on the instincts? I'm going to just put that in the email that I send out with your worksheet this week, just to have as a reference down the road. Again, I think the instincts are just almost as critical as knowing your type, just like you said, man. And well, there's other things that we could, I say, and that's critical, and that's critical. They all are just a beautiful layering of being to understand, first and foremost, why I think the way I do, right? The whole point of this is not to go around and go, oh, I see what you're doing there, and I see what you're doing there. That's the tendency when we're unaware. So, Lee, thank you so very much for doing that. I appreciate it. Okay, so how does all of this fit into how we're talking about the story of us? Well, I think that's what we're talking about. We're layering and layering how this lens, all the measurements that your doctor took with your eyes, how does he form and go, I don't know how they really do it, but how does he cut your lens to your specification? That's what we're doing here, is seeing all of the input that makes up us. So I'll never see clearly through your lens, but your lens is not good or bad, and my lens isn't right or wrong. Here's where I'm going with this week. It's whether we are so attached to our view that we begin to defend it. So that's when it's like, oh, well, my way of seeing the world is right and yours is wrong. That's what happens when we feel our identity is threatened. And here is what we're talking about, what we talked about last week. It's the attachment to these perspectives that put us in defense mode because we think this is who we are and we are right. And I'm going to defend that rightness. So, but if we can begin to consider that my perspective and your perspective are different and both essential, then we can exchange ideas and develop insight and blend to create a synergy. That's what we're trying to do, is see how can we work better together and get along. And in doing this, when we truly begin to appreciate other perspectives, I have a vision that a world will be, that we will understand we need each other. There's nothing like going to a concert and let's just say you've gone to see the symphony and all they have is a piano and all that person does is play the letter or the C chord, C, clink, 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 just that one note over and over and over. Well, nobody wants that. Nobody wants just one perspective in the world. So when we come together, we create a symphony of perspectives that can work in harmony. Okay, I want to move on to the worksheet that we had, but I'll just tell you, when I was comparing my worksheet from my perspective with someone whose lens is very different from mine, I discovered that there was an incident that we went through almost hand in hand, but we had very different outcomes on the same experience, very different perspectives and reactions. So was mine right and hers wrong? No. The question I had to consider was, is my attachment to my perspective something I've used to form a sense of my identity? Is there something I have to defend? These are the questions that when we talk about releasing attachments, until we know what we are attached to, we can't release them. We have to observe, acknowledge, and say, is this serving me anymore? Or is it a burden that I've continued to carry? I wanted to see if y'all wanted to talk about that worksheet. Was there anything that jumped out, any particular question, or was there something you added that you'd like to share with us? Bueller? Did anybody get that reference?
Anyone?
Anyone? I just watched that last week.
I wanted to ask, Ricky, would you like me to email you the worksheet? Okay.
Oh,
Awesome. Yes, please do.
like right now?
Yeah,
Thank you, Lee. Duh.
Okay.
you're welcome. Would you like me to text it or email it? And do you mind saying your contact out loud?
My email, you say?
Yeah.
Sure. It's Ricky Ramo, RICKYRAMO @gmail.com.
Okay, it's coming.
All right.
See, that's why we need a type 1 here.
Oh dear.
Yes, she has the checklist and she gets it done. Thank you.
You're welcome. Okay, whoosh.
Okay. Anybody up to share?
Just arrived.
I can share.
Okay.
I came prepared for talking first because I might have to bail early. I would say that one of the ways my identity formed very early was I moved when I was 4 from, not that I had a strong attachment to my home city as a 4-year-old. Like I could have been, widgeted into any house and my experience been pretty similar. But we moved to a really small town in rural North Georgia. And like I was 4 when we moved there. When I started kindergarten, I was the new kid.
Oh, yeah.
As a 5-year-old, because I wasn't native from the town. I hadn't been born there. And when I graduated from high school in the same town, I was still the new kid,
Wow.
right? Even though we had like all experienced the exact same upbringing, right? And my mom had divorced and we moved, and she remarried a local guy, right, who is my dad. But even that was like, they would refer to me as my mom was named Marcia's daughter, right? And the othering of that experience made a really profound impact, like on my perception of who I was. Like I went in feeling like an outsider and came out feeling like an outsider. And to this day, if I go there, I can run into people and it's like I wound up making all of the friends that I still have from my schooling experience were kids that moved in.
Oh.
Like I don't have a single native local friend from, and my school had I graduated with maybe 100 people. I mean, it was not a big community, right? But still just that. The other one was I don't have a very pronounced Southern accent, especially compared to where I grew up. And it was like, you talk funny. Like, okay. This is very interesting coming from someone who I think needs subtitles. But I guess I talk funny, but it was just that in thinking about this exercise, I hadn't articulated all of those thoughts to myself, but in this exercise, I was remembering that and seeing how big of an impact it made. So thank you.
Thank you for sharing it that way. I was going to ask after we did this, but I'm just going to, in case you need to go, address the fact that you said, I was going to say, how did it make you feel when you went through, if there were a couple that, stood out? And you just were I could see the feeling. I mean, I could see it on your face and I could almost feel it. So.
Yeah, I could feel it too. There's like a catch in naming what happened,
Yeah.
Interestingly about story, and you were talking about that, I've been thinking a lot about story. And when I was thinking about that experience, I wasn't going to my head to say, what does it mean about me that they did that? Or what does it mean about them that they did that? It wasn't that I was trying to find a meaning to it. It was just, that sucked. Just like a feeling, an emotion and a feeling instead of a story.
See, you can go on endlessly with bringing up this, and this is what I'm trying to say. We get my gender, my race, my nationality, the school I went to, did I graduate? All of these, they're almost surface talk, but it's when we get into those, what were the profound experiences of your life? And that was a great example of that. And the funny thing is, we moved a lot when I was young, and my dad was he was designing missiles and rockets. He was an engineer. We moved around, and I feel like, looking back, it was all very exciting to me. Well, I can look and go, well, of course it was. It's a new adventure. It was something to look forward to. I see my type coming out even as a child, where some other types, can really be traumatized. And I'm not saying I wasn't traumatized. It just depends on, that word gets thrown around a lot. And I have a friend who's a psychologist. It's like, she'll be talking to a client who's a teenager and they'll say, I went through this trauma. And she'll have to say, well, okay, I'm going to agree that that was a difficult time, but that's not trauma. That is not what trauma is. So anyways, back to this, being able to reflect from your lens, how the same situation affected you, might not have affected your siblings if you had one, the same. Okay, Clay, Megan, did y'all want to make a point? Because I'm not forcing you to. I promised I wouldn't grade you.
Do you have any?
Sure.
You go ahead.
So, as I thought a little bit about this, it wasn't a lot of new work, but it sort of reminded me of partly why the Enneagram was so impactful for me when I really began to dig into it. It was all kind of at a time when I was also doing a lot of story work, of understanding, really just kind of taking an honest look at my past, my upbringing, all these kind of things, and really understanding some of the implications and how I'm carrying some of those things forward and holding on to certain things. And it's really funny with the question of nurture or nature. I don't know, but I can absolutely see how maybe it was a chicken and the egg thing, because it was like I can see from a young age, sort of developing these defense mechanisms or strategies and approaches to problems, and they were very much in line with a 3. I mean, it was keeping things efficient, keeping things excellent. In some ways, I think I could almost label myself as a 3 who's as a performer, as someone who knows how to show up in the right environment. One of the primary ways I picked up on, or one of the things I picked up on that I would put a lot of energy into showing up, would essentially disguise myself as a 1. So actually, as I began some of the Enneagram stuff, I thought for sure I was a 1, until I realized, no, it's actually that who I am as a 3 thought that for so much of my life, that's who I was expected to be. I was expected to get things right and to have it perfect. But that was just one of the many faces I could put on. So that, I can then carry that forward into, how I show up in my relationships, how I show up in my job. I mean, I run my own business where I serve a bunch of like small nonprofits, handling all of their financial operations. And I mean, I'm basically problem solving, systematizing, and making things efficient and excellent on a daily basis. And so it's like I've taken the best parts of that and brought it into my professional world. But it's so easy for that to overlap into a fundamental belief of who I am, not what I do or how I can show up, or it's I mean, that's really been a big part of the work in the last few years, is saying, I mean, this is here, this is available to me, this is at my disposal, but it's not the entirety of who I am. It's not where my identity lies. But when so much of not only it's like the in my case, a lot of where I put that energy was really applauded and praised, and in this case it served me well. Like it allowed me to create a business essentially around it. Like that can make it very difficult to realize that is not my my true identity. And so then the journey and the question begins, well, who am I underneath all of that? And I mean, really, so I mean, as I look at obviously there's things like gender and socioeconomic placement and all that kind of stuff that definitely affects me. But that one, I think my disposition from an Enneagram standpoint, I see it show up in every aspect of my life. And again, that's why it's been so valuable to me, is because it's been I feel like all at once, it's like everything got revealed. And I kind of had to step back and was like, oh my goodness. Like, I feel like in some ways it's all me. And on the other hand, none of it's me, because I'm realizing it's been my job to perform, to put this on, to be that problem solver and all that. So I feel like I'm several years into that sort of unpacking and unwinding what all that means, but I'm still in that process of figuring out what that is. And a lot of that has just been coming to a place of saying, all right, I'm okay not exactly knowing who I am on the other side of this, but
Oh,
first just letting go.
and that's what we'll get. I'll
You know,
have a
with
slide for this, but
Yeah.
it's always a process. It
Yeah.
is ongoing. There
Yeah.
is no, and here's the final place. I've figured it all out. Where's my crown? It's the constant becoming aware and releasing. Thank you so
Yeah.
much.
And just appreciating it for what it was and saying, that was great. That it got me here, got me this far. One of the, I don't know if it's his own creation or term, but Richard Rohr in some of his books has used this concept of, what does he call it, like a faithful soldier, I think, or something like that. And it's almost like this companion that was with me for a long, long time and like escorted me in a way to this point. And there is now almost this place of saying, it's not that now I have to kill you or you go away or you leave me here by myself, but it's that this is what got me to where I am. But maybe you're no longer leading, maybe I am, but I don't know who I am to lead. So
I
that's
love that.
part of the process.
I love that. I love that analogy. That's
It's a great image. Yeah, I've really
good image.
that
And
was-
what I love about that is what I have at my core of teaching any of this is that I want us to honor our past.
Yeah.
Give thanks to it. And so many times we're so tempted to go, oh, I can't believe I did that. Okay, well, you realize that. Maybe it served you for a time. Maybe you needed to perform well, like you said. It lifted you to the place where it actually has led you to be able to do the job you do now. We can all look back and go, oh, I was crazy when I was a teenager. We love to refer back to our early 20s. Well, of course we were. We were still building the story of us. And this is why I love this butterfly analogy, is because it's necessary. It's necessary that we have this information. And like the caterpillar that molts and he lets this, grows out of his skin, and he gets more information. He outgrows that one, but he's still that caterpillar, still a caterpillar. And you don't look back and go, oh my gosh, you're a caterpillar. No, that actually served the purpose for a time being. And it's what you're saying now. We find these things out about ourselves, the Enneagram or, therapy, whatever the thing is that you're going through. And it's like, oh, okay. Yes, that's exactly how I think. Yes, that is how I react. That's me. And then you go, oh my gosh, that's me. And then you begin to peel back the layers of, is that me? Or is that a role and a function? And that's the first slide we're going to, and in a minute. But I want Megan and Ricky, if either of you have something to share.
I think for me, something that kind of jumped out just looking at the list and then kind of going, I just kind of went through each one and just kind of jotted down some stuff to see kind of what stuck. And I think thinking just generationally, like thinking of my family line, um, just about a few generations, just a lot of grief and hard things. Um, you know, uh, I'm just thinking one of my great grandfather's young beloved sister, died in the Spanish flu in the mid, the teens, the 1918, I think it was 1919. And then one of his children, had special needs, was born with special needs, which was really challenging, like in the 30s and stuff. And moving on, my grandma had all these late term miscarriages. My dad, kind of soldiered on as the only child, all hopes put on him. And I just think back all these things. Then when I was 10, my baby brother died. Like the way that my family has, I mean, these griefs are normal griefs that happen to families, but I see kind of just like this cloud and this way of dealing with it, partnered with like their religion and just the way that it was dealt with, there's good to come later in the afterlife. Life now is hard. And that's just kind of how it is, and a lot of hope put in the future, afterlife, not so much to be worked through and claimed here. And so when I was 10 and my baby brother died, I also kind of felt myself stepping into the comforter role. Looking back now as a parent, I can see how I would probably handle it differently, thinking about my siblings and me also losing a brother. And I mean, just all of it, it was new loss. But I definitely took on that role as the comforter and walking on eggshells, I can just see my posture kind of changing around that time. Obviously, it was a very hard time for my parents. Getting up to my junior high years, all of my really good friends' parents started dying, like a lot. Like 6th grade, heart attack, 7th grade, suicide, 8th grade, another heart attack. There was cancer. There was a suicide, which involved my friend getting shot. She survived, but like really like intense stuff, like all through high school. I want to say I have like 8 friends. Like I can't think of a close friend that didn't lose a parent from something. Which further postured me in that support comforting role, also kind of, I think, created some anxiety and some fears. Yeah. So just thinking about things forming identity, I see it's just interesting because you start doing this work and a lot of what comes out is a lot of anger about how I wish things had been differently. Not so much with my friends. I mean, that just happens and it's crazy when I look back at it. But even just family wise, stuff happens to you and it kind of forms this identity. And then like there's this, I don't know, this fight and this rebellion. And there was a lot of anger towards my family. And I don't know, I feel like there's a shift that happens where it's like identity happens, you don't have a choice, that you are who you are. Then you see it and you struggle with it and you grapple with it, get mad. And now I feel like I'm at this place where, this is my life. This is my life work. Like I'm tied to this. This is who I am. This is where it happens, like, I don't know. I feel myself re-choosing my identity, I guess,
Perfectly said.
like, this is it. This is the stuff grapple with and work with like for the rest of my life. This is it. And I feel, I don't know, I feel grateful for it. But yeah, the generational stuff was interesting that came up for me, just looking back at the lineage, and just a lot of darkness and a lot of hard stuff, and religion mixed in with it.
You are so right to, and wise to bring up the generational, because it's passed on to us one way or the other, through stories, through how they react to something. This is why the layers of what builds the story of us cannot be confined to those external checklist things. They're just a door to enter in. And then and then somebody says, well, how did you handle, and then you bring up something like this. And until we began to observe the big picture, like lay it all out like you just did, that's some deep work there, going back through all that, how that formed your parents' story and they passed it on to you. And to say that this is our work, that's exactly it. This is our work. This is where we have the opportunity to either agree with our history of our family, who say, this is the way it is. This is the way it is. Well, a lot of the way it was in their day really was. They didn't have the options or the insights to things that we do. They had a lot of wisdom, don't get me wrong. But until we get to the point to where it's like, the world I'm living in right now is so much more evolved. We are so much more conscious of things than we were in the early 1900s. And for you to say, nope, time out here. I don't want to think that all of life is somewhere in the afterlife. What is it meant to be here right now? I am here. How can I be here in this form? Find out what it means to detach from these identities and live my true essence. What is that? That's where we are. Ricky, do you want to jump into this? I know it's kind of sprung on you at the end.
No, it's fine. I've been jotting a couple of things with what I received from Lee and what I've been listening to all of you, and two things came to my mind, and one of them is the two things that have been very important in my life, knowingly or not, is a sense of identity, and the other, looking for a tribe. And touching some of the points, for example, race and nationality, even though I'm Puerto Rican and we're a Commonwealth of the continental United States, I was brought up more thinking of myself as being what is called an American and not that much as Puerto Rican. And I was raised that way. My father used to say that he was Puerto Rican by birth, but not by choosing. I saw myself the same way. And because of that, there's certain things that, for example, festivities, we would celebrate certain things like some Puerto Ricans do, but it was different. It was kind of different. And that resonated with me a lot, to the point that because of my religious position, Lutheran Christian, even though I wasn't raised in that faith, and I'll touch that in a second. I saw that the Jewish culture was less heavenly and more earthly. What you were saying right now, this is where we live. We don't live in the heavens. We live on earth. And I believe that we're all called to make changes and help to make the world better. And even the Jewish festivities, they all had to do with haaretz, the land.
Mhm.
And so they were so earthy, and they were so caring for their culture and the earth and the people. And I said, hey, that's cool. So I talked with a rabbi friend of mine, and I became a Jew by culture. I'm Christian by faith, but I'm a Jew by culture. So I love the idea of taking care of the earth and the people, and we're called to make a big change in our communities where we're at. About generation, the way I saw it was what kind of generation I was born in, and I was, even though some people may disagree, I'm a Generation X. No, I'm not a boomer. I don't think like a boomer. I don't act like a boomer. And when the boomers were hippies, I was in first grade. No, I'm not a boomer.
Missed the fun.
Yeah, oh no, I'm having fun on my own.
I know.
Now, the interesting thing is, I was several years ago, I was talking to a veteran, and he asked me if I had gone to the Vietnam War, and I said, no, I was in first grade at the time. But anyways, yeah, but that's interesting, because as a Generation Xer, boomers see me different.
Mhm.
You know, but I think different. I act different. And I find myself in the middle of so many things and so many changes. I was the guy that when I was doing my master's, I was carrying a laptop, which was as bigger as oh my goodness,
They were big.
a car.
Yeah.
And weighted a ton, and I've seen the changes. I saw the changes in TV. When I was little, the TV was black and white, and oh boy, I saw the changes when we had a color TV, and now we have a plasma. Those changes that millennials, which is what our children's are, don't see, and it's interesting that everything that they're enjoying, and they think that we don't know how to use, they got it from us, the experts.
Right.
And I hate it. I just hate it when Joe, our son, calls me a boomer. You don't know what you're talking about. You don't know your history. Relationship with parents has been rocky since I was little. Had to deal with that. But to give you an example, my father was a banker, and when I was in college, he told me that he had always wanted me to be a banker like him, and I said, no, man, I'll make the banks go bankrupt. I'm not good at numbers. I'm not good at counting money. But that was what he wanted me to be. My mother, she never told me, but I bet that she wanted me to be a priest.
Oh.
And or the world came tumbling down for both of them when I told them that I wanted to go to seminary and become a minister.
Mm.
Sometimes my mom would say, oh, you made such a good priest. And I said, well, you want to have grandchildren? She said, yeah. I said, take your pick. Take your pick. You can't have both. I mean, you can, but I would be an awful priest.
Yeah.
She still wants to convert me. No deal. Ain't gonna happen. And that has been a battle for years. But I found myself out of not belonging to the family. Not really.
Mhm.
Not really. That's the reason why I've been looking for a tribe. Educational wise, I went to private schools, parochial school, until I became a teenager. Then I went to an evangelical school, and it was kind of cool. That's when I started reading a little bit more the Bible and became an evangelical. Changed different churches, went from a Pentecostalist church to became a Presbyterian since I was 16, and it lasted for most of my life. But then I couldn't deal with some of the Presbyterian beliefs in the long run, as they just, that idea of God predestining just a few and predestining the others for, to hell. I mean, that's not, it didn't get here. So after being a Presbyterian minister for some time, I became a Lutheran minister, and now I'm the dean, which is the presiding minister of the General Lutheran Church, which is also a host to universalism. And I find that awesome, because I'm not picking and choosing. I don't think that God picks and chooses. I believe that God loves everybody, and I don't know. We're all going to meet Him in the long run.
So all of these, this is, every one of those are a layer to your story,
right?
to your story, to my story, to our story. I'm gonna go on. Lee, do you have to jump right off? Because I was gonna go through the slides real quick, just so the take home will make sense. It would make sense. It's not gonna make sense, but okay, let me pull up. Oh, Danae, where are we? Okay, screen share. Let's start there. And let me minimize that. Okay, so Ricky, just so you'll see where we are, this is the first part of what we talked about last week, that we're identifying what is form right now. This is the phase that we've been in. And I see this as a 3-phase process: form, transform, formless, but they overlap, just like the Venn diagram. And so we talked about what is form. It's everything that we've just talked about. These are the stories that layer, that create the sense of our identity. But we're beginning to look through the conversation that we've had today, and I thank each one of you for becoming vulnerable enough to share that, yeah, I see what I was attached to. This is something that maybe no longer serves me. Maybe you haven't detached from it yet, but you're observing it, you're questioning. And we've talked about all of that, our environment. That's the worksheet that we went through. So what today, and I'm just going to go through this as quickly as I can, what we're looking at, and Clay, you alluded to it, you said this, are these roles and functions of our persona, of our humanity, our existence here in form? Are these roles that we play or perform, or are they who we believe we are? So when you begin looking at, okay, what is a role? Well, what does that even mean? And this is where when I question this, it's like, oh, aha. I use that aha moment all the time, because there are things about who I am that will always be. Here's an example, and I'll just say this one briefly, and then you can think about your own. But I am a mother. I have 3 grown children. I will always be their mother. But my role in the mothering of my children has drastically changed. It had to. When it becomes a problem is when I can't detach from that identity. In other words, that's who I see myself. I'm your mother. I'm sorry that you're 40. I think I need to question, are you paying your bills? How's your relationship? All of these things where I began to keep the role that should have been released. I keep that as an identity, because I don't know who I would be if I wasn't that person, that role. You can begin to figure out on and on. I remember hearing the people, I'm going to mess this up, but I don't know what country it was. But anyway, when the market crashed, I could be getting my metaphors mixed up here. It could just be there. But men lost their jobs and they began committing suicide. They jumped out of the windows because they did not know who they were without that. That's who they were. My job is who I am. Is it, or is it a role? What we're looking to find and question is, are these roles and functions of my existence, are they serving me, or is it something I need to just begin to let go of? It's that transitional point of, yes, I'm still your mother, but the role is not the same. So I'm going to quickly go through the types here. And the reason, all of you guys know this, so what I'm just going to do is show this. You know the names for the other types. So I'm not going to spend a lot of time on this. But these become our identities if we don't separate our manifestation of our type, the way we react from our instincts. If we attach to this is my identity, this is where we can miss the essence of who we are. And what I wanted to focus on the bottom is the line I'll put at the end of each one of these. What each type focuses on and what they miss. So type ones often focus on what isn't right, because that's what they see themselves as. I am a reformer. I love when people say a type one is a reformer. What a beautiful name to attach to that, as opposed to the perfectionist. That bothers me, but it has been given that label a lot. But when you're so focused on what isn't right, you miss what is right. And this is going to be the same in every type. The type 2 is the helper. Where would we be without our type 2s who give and give and give? And they support you, and they know your needs before you do, they think. But they end up taking on that identity that, no, I'm the helper. That's who I am. I don't need help. And I know what you need. You may not even know what you need. So when their main focus is on needs that are unmet, they miss the provision that's already available. Maybe somebody else is coming to bring what's necessary. They might miss this. If their focus is on, this is my job, I'm the helper, I'm the one who will be there for you at all cost. I'm here to meet the unmet needs of you. They can miss the provisions that are available. Same, type 3, achiever. What a wonderful thing to be, that you seek to achieve. That's a great goal. When you see yourself as, that is who I am, like Clay talked about, then it becomes almost at the cost of who you are underneath, who you are in your essence. So when the achiever, who is great at getting things done, great at winning, when their constant focus is on, I'm going to do better, we're going to achieve this, we got to get more done, we got to keep going, because achievers are in that very assertive stance, getting it done. Well, you can miss what you already have done. You can forget that you have been so valuable in so many ways, and you're loved, whether you're achieving great things or not. But that's something to consider. What am I missing when all I'm thinking about is what I need to get done? Type 4s are beautiful individualists who love seeing the depth of people and emotions. I tell you, I've said it before, if I ever needed somebody to help me through grief and suffering, I would hope it would be a 4, because they're not afraid to go to those deep emotions. In fact, they love them sometimes. And they'll tell you, I have a friend, a great friend. And I used this example before, but I asked him, I said, how do you feel? Because he's a musician. I said, how do you feel when you hear Simon and Garfunkel and that line that says, hello, darkness, my old friend. And he said, "Oh, that feels like a warm blanket wrapped around me." I was like, "Oh." I'm like, "Oh, it sounds sad." And he was like, "Yeah, it's just so deep." But when you're so focused on needing to be so identified with your authenticity, with your uniqueness, with you're special, you've got pain that someone can't identify with, you are missing things that other people have naturally. When that's what you're focusing on, about what people misunderstand, then you as a type 4 are missing what people do see and appreciate, how much we value you for what you have, not what you think you're missing. Type 5s, the investigator, again, if I'm if I want to know the facts, I'm usually talking to a type 5 who does not speak just off the cuff. Usually they are observant, they do investigate, they think, they want to know, they want to be competent. But when they're focused so much on the need to withdraw, type 5s are in the withdrawing stance. When they go so into their mind that they need their autonomy and they need to find more information. So because I'm not loved if I'm not competent, I'm not safe if I'm not knowledgeable, then they miss the provisions that come through the human connection. You don't have to have all the answers. We want you. Type 5s, we value you for your presence and for who you are. We appreciate that you really have this desire to be competent, but we want you in the room with us. Type 6, our loyalists, they question, they want to know how to be prepared for things. I said this, I think, maybe in here or another place. If I'm going on a hiking trip, I want a type 6 with me because they're going to be prepared. They're going to think all the way through what might happen, how can I have safety and security. So when they focus so much on what could go wrong, they keep thinking, yeah, but this could happen, then they miss how capable they are to handle whatever comes their way. They don't have to have everything all mapped out. When you trust yourself, you see that you are capable. Type 7s, the enthusiast. That's a great moniker to have. I am a type 7, but I've learned that when people assume that I'm going to be the one to do the entertaining, and then I don't, they don't know what to do with it. It's like, well, that's you. This is your place, Danae, in the family. When you step out of a family dynamic that you've assumed all of your life, people begin to wonder what's wrong. But type 7s, they have this fear of missing out. They want to be eternally optimistic, and that's great. And they love thinking about the future and what's out there. And I could do this, I could be an entertainer, I could also be a scientist. There's so many options. But when you're so busy focusing on the options that are out there, oh, we miss the provision that's right here in front of us. Not just the provision, we miss life because that's happening right here in front of us. Type 8, our challengers, they will take up for you, they'll protect you, they go to bat for the underdog. This is what we love about type 8s. They don't want to be seen as weak, so they have a hard time with being vulnerable. They don't want to be controlled, so they will control. They will control the environment. They'll seek to control others. But in this desire to protect, through the great gifts that you have of taking charge and being a protector of those that are marginalized, then when you focus so much on projecting power, you miss connecting to people because vulnerability seems weak and it's something that feels like you're setting yourself up to be hurt. But when you allow yourself to connect through vulnerability, that's when the relationships are such enhanced and grown to be real when we're real and connecting to others that way. Type 9, the peacemaker. I did hear something. There's a difference. This is a whole other subject, but the difference between being a peacemaker and keeping the peace. Peacemaking, if you're going to be a peacemaker, it oftentimes will involve conflict. You can't just shut out conflict, shut out other feelings. You can't just seek so much to not have your inner world disrupted that you lose the ability to connect with people. So when type 9s focus on minimizing their impact by just remaining peaceful, and I don't want to get into any conflict, then they miss the impact that they naturally make as people who have this ability to see all perspectives, to see so many sides of a conflict or a situation. They have that ability, but until they allow themselves to be a part of it, then they just detach from connection, and they miss out on the impact that their presence truly makes. So as we wrap this up, I'll send you your talking points or your journal prompts just for your reflection that are really going to just be that, what we miss out, what we focus on and what we miss out on. And our growth path is to look at our behaviors and ask, is this the expression of my type, or is it who I believe I am? Because what we focus on determines what we miss. Oh, wow. I thought I'm not going to be able to get it all in. Oh, I think we're beginning to peel back these layers of all of the things that comprise the identity that we've packed on and said, yep, this story, this is me, this is me, this is me. And now we're in the phase of being objective, being aware, looking at it and questioning it. That's the best we can do, is say, I just want to question. Is this a yes? Is this a maybe? Is it a no? Is it time to let it go? Is it something that's still serving me at this point in my life? Only we can answer that on an individual level. Any questions as we wrap up here? I know Lee's got to get in there, and your kids stayed in bed, I guess.
Yeah, it's
They did good
quiet.
tonight.
Either they're asleep or they're not in the
They're-
house anymore. We don't know where.
Started their own deal out there, and see if we can join them.
Y'all, I value this so much. Your input it helps me so much. Again, I said, I don't want this to be a lecture because I have so much to learn. My fear is that I don't know enough. Somebody who's a head type, I get all into my head about, I need to learn some more. I need to learn some more. But the truth is, we need to share some more. I learned so much from what you said. I'm going to stop record right now and see you next week.